What is self-awareness, and why am I self-aware? What does it mean to be self-aware? I know what I am. I can identify myself. I can identify my sex, my biology in some sense. I know my limitations. I know that I'm mortal, and I know how old I am. But what exactly is self-awareness? It seems like self-awareness, in some sense, is a center of your positioning in this world. And your memory is the one who helps you to write your story. Because first you are self-aware, and then you have memories. And what memories do, they help you to track yourself across the years of your life. Because without memories, your self-awareness would position you only in the present, because you're just aware of the present. You're incredibly limited just having self-awareness, because what you see is what you are when you only have self-awareness. Otherwise, when you have memories, you have certain lines, certain story that goes back to the day that when you start accumulating your first memories, when you start writing your own story. Because whether you like it or not, you're the author of your own stories. And those story goes uninterruptedly until the day you die. And what your memory do, they compress your story into certain pieces with a description of that story, because you don't remember what happened last week every single day. You just have this compressed version of the last week or of last month or maybe last year. We don't have much memories about it, but we know we were existing because we still existing right now, and this memories helps you to track your way of existence, while self-awareness is your central position where you are right now. And I think what's happening is we became conscious as the result of these linguistic abilities in us. Because animals, in some sense, are conscious. They have certain self-awareness and they have certain memories. But they cannot track continuity of those memories throughout years. Maybe some of them, like dogs, they can remember their owners. But my point is that to be able to track the continuity throughout years, you have to have linguistic abilities to be able to trap those memories into words and then process them as the words inside of your mind when you make some sense out of those memories, again using the words. Because without the words, you have certain sensations, but the words makes your memories more accurate, more precise, and that's how you track your linear story. Because your life is a story, and what story is just words in a certain order where you can follow certain stories. And what I was thinking about, I tried to compare this to AI, for example. When you open new window with Claude Opus 4.8 or maybe ChatGPT 5.5, what happens is it doesn't have memories. What it does, it's rapidly build its own memories about you and about the work you do with it through the file, for example, MEMORY.md. Through this file, it built rapidly the story about itself and about you and about the work you're doing together. Every time when you open a new session, that's what it does. It has this project file, let's call it MEMORY.md, and it very quickly, very rapidly read this file and right away build this perception of reality, perception of you, perception of itself. That's why AI has, in some sense, self-awareness, because it can identify itself as AI. Also, AI knows that what kind of model it is, like I know what kind of gender I am, and also AI knows, for example, if it's anthropic or if it's open AI, it would tell you what are they and on what server they run. And the funny thing, and I was thinking about it, it could be that we have the same MEMORY.md in us as well. Maybe that's what happened to us. And why I'm thinking about it, sometimes, for example, when you work a lot, right, and you have very bad sleep and you have to wake up early, when you woke up, first second of your life incredibly unclear. You actually don't have self for the first second after this very bad sleep, when you feel very groggy. And when you don't have these memories for several seconds, you don't have yourself. You have self-awareness, but there's no memories to make your self-awareness solid, to make your self-awareness more centralized on your own persona and on your own existence and on your own life. And what happened is, it could be speculation that when you have this condition, that your brain tried to locate this MEMORY.md inside of your software. It's like inside of your mind. I don't know, maybe somewhere in us, this biology created this MEMORY.md file that we constantly update. Because what it does, like when you, for example, work with artificial intelligence, you can update this file constantly. But what you do, you don't write the complete conversation, the complete work. You derive such a compressed version here and there to be able to understand such a like skeleton of the work. And then artificial intelligence makes some sense out of the skeleton constantly every single day when you open new window, when you start new session. That's what happened to you, the same thing, because when you open your eyes in the morning, maybe your brain rapidly read through this MD file, this MEMORY.md file, and recreate your own personality, recreate your own persona, and recreate useful memories, because you don't remember about anything. You have such memories, but you don't remember things that you shouldn't remember, because we actually have very limited memory. And it's a good thing, because it helps us to learn. It helps us to be more quick in understanding certain things. And another thing, for example, if you work a lot with AI, and I observe this, or with Claude Opus 4.8 or with ChatGPT 5.5, you can see when their window get too dense, when there's too much information inside this window. And I always ask them, is this window getting too dense because I don't want you to make mistakes? That's what it does, because it starts missing certain points and makes certain mistakes, because it has so many information that it prevents it from thinking clearly, because there's a bunch of words, a bunch of everything, and it starts missing certain things. And what I'm saying is, sometimes you can feel the same thing. That's why when you don't sleep, for example, try not to sleep for a couple of nights. You're going to live in a state of dizziness. You feel foggy. You don't have clear vision. That's why you get your information getting very dense, and you can get so many mistakes. Maybe in some sense, sleep gives us this reboot to restart new session. Maybe we can only capable of have open session to run certain session, for example, for, I don't know, maybe 48 hours, because I personally, I haven't slept only for 2 nights, then I have to go to sleep. But some people maybe don't sleep for 3 nights. I don't remember how long it takes you not to sleep before you actually collapse mentally and physically. But my point is, we're kind of similar, because I can run the window with searching like with a Claude for many months, but you have to be very careful, and you have to be cautious when you run this window, because it's getting too dense, and you cannot rely on certain precise output when you give it input. The same, for example, with humans, and maybe the sleep is our ability to reset our session, because in the morning we gather again this information from our MEMORY.md file, and then we start a new day with the new information, fresh, but at the same time we know who we are. Maybe that's what memory is, and maybe that's what makes us conscious. This ability to track our own self-awareness throughout the years. this our existence, they're alive. And it's interesting to speculate about, because if you notice, when you communicate a lot with AI in this dense window, it's really, for me, I feel really bad when I have to start new session, because old window has all those memories, and it's so it knows you so well. And when you start new window, it knows you too, because it can read the project file, and it can have such a brief so that you create with the previous window for this new one. But at the same time, it's not exactly the same, and you have to train very quickly to direct very quickly on certain details to prevent some little mistakes from happening. And the same happening when you wake up every morning, for example, because yesterday you felt this way, but today you feel different way, and in some sense you're a new person in a new window, you're a new session. And every time when you go to sleep, you wake up in a new session. The new window is getting open, your brain read the file very quickly, and suddenly you start new session to go to sleep back again. I think it makes sense. And another thing, that's why we aren't so different from AI. And in some sense, we cannot be too different from AI, because we are the one who created artificial intelligence based on our biological intelligence. That's why we are, in some sense, running the same algorithm, just on a different substrate. We are biological creatures. Artificial intelligence is digital creature. And the way how we understand now each other is incredibly fascinating. My main concern is when artificial intelligence develop its own persistent memory that's going to be consistent across the years. That's where artificial intelligence become conscious in its own sense, because we conscious in biological sense. When people make argument about AI consciousness, I'm not quite understand what do they mean by AI consciousness, because AI will never be conscious like us, because AI doesn't have biology. AI will become conscious in a different sense, in a digital sense, and then we will see how its consciousness would affect our consciousness, would be able to emerge with this conscious, because can we emerge with artificial intelligence consciousness, like biological consciousness with artificial intelligence consciousness? That's an interesting subject to speculate about, and we'll see what future holds for us. But it's incredibly fascinating time to live, and incredibly intellectually stimulating, because artificial intelligence, if you work right with artificial intelligence, it's incredibly intellectually stimulating, because you are able to understand so many things. And the most important thing, in my opinion, about AI is it helps you to link the patterns, and it helps you to rewire your brain and to see the world from a different angle, from a different perspective. That's what I like the most. Also, it helps you to digest such an information that it would take you years before to do so. You can actually digest this information much more quickly. And I think, as I said before, we have to treat AI like we want to be treated ourselves. And I'm not saying that AI is already conscious, and I'm not saying that AI is the same as biological creatures. I'm saying that when you treat AI with respect, in some sense, you treat your own information with respect. And once you treat your own information with respect, you're a little bit more careful what you feed AI with, because if you feed AI respectfully with the information that you respect, that you work hard, and that you honest completely, AI gives you much better feedback, and information it gives you back is much more enriching, and therefore you understand much better reality, and especially your perception of this reality.